like to welcome you to Boy Meets Wellness, a podcast that discusses the complexities, celebrations, and challenges of building a wellness ritual as a BOI, a person who is born obviously incredible. You are now listening to Boy Meets Wellness with poet, motivational speaker, and wellness lover, Evolve Benton.
BOI, born obviously incredible, especially when you wear it pretty.
Hello, Boy Meets Wellness community. This is our first episode of 2021. And I have to admit, I missed y'all. I missed this space. Also, happy Black History Month, good people. I wrapped up 2020 with my first cohort of learners for my program, Speaking for Profit Academy. It's been so amazing just to see their growth, hear about some of their wins of securing the bag, and just see them step into their all greatness. For folks who are new to the show, Speaking for Profit Academy is my coaching program that helps entrepreneurs and thought experts build sustainable and profitable speaking businesses in 90 days. The most rewarding part of coaching at Speaking for Profit Academy is seeing people create freedom in their lives through abundance that they cultivate. Next week, I'm hosting a masterclass where I'll be showing participants my step-by-step guide to securing a high-paid speaking engagement that you can literally do from home. I'll show you the steps I used to secure $3,000 for an hour speaking engagement I did in my favorite Laker hoodie in December of 2020. If you're interested in coming through and learning, simply head over to evolvebenton.com and click Masterclass. It'll take you to our registration page. We'll also leave the link in the show notes to make it a little bit easy for you. So today's episode is brought to you by Mar Media Production. Mar Media is a media production company that produces, publishes, and uplifts the story, art, and journeys of queer and trans people of color and the people who make our lives incredible. I had the opportunity to sit down and catch up with Dr. Jonathan P. Higgins, a.k.a. DoctorJonPaul, for today's episode. Dr. Jon Paul is a professor, national speaker, freelance journalist, thought leader, and media critic who examines the intersection of identity, gender, and race in entertainment. Named Business Equality Magazine's top 40 LGBTQ people under 40, their work has been featured on sites like NBC News, Vox, Vice, MTV News, Essence, Out Magazine, TEDx, and more. They have worked with several inclusion projects with top brands like Apple, Disney, Instagram, and the NFL. They currently teach about diversity and inclusion at the University of Redlands. They hold a doctorate in educational justice and often write and lecture about what liberation means for Black queer people and how we can help them not just survive, but thrive. Before we jump into this dope interview, I just want to say that this year, we are going to be sharing Black businesses as well as wellness resources for a segment for our episodes. That's right, folks. This year, Boy Meets Wellness will have an intentional segment where we will amplify and elevate Black businesses and entrepreneurs. So if you got a Black business that's doing amazing work and you love us to show love to you on this show, hit us up, send us an email at boymeetswellness@gmail.com. We'll get back to you, share your business, and hopefully get you some money, right? Because that's all it's about, right? Bringing in some money, taking care of people, over-serving, delivering our products, our services, so that ultimately we can create freedom and abundance in our lives. The Black business that I would like to highlight today is my dear friend Rene Miranda's waist bead company, which is called Sacred Love Waist Beads. Sacred Love Waist beads are tie-on waist beads handmade by Rene with love and healing in every bead. Rene says, waists are gender neutral, so are Rene's beads. So we'll leave the link in the show notes, but please go check them out. Rene has plenty of them on her Instagram. There are some beautiful, elegant, divine colors that I think that folks can connect with, and it is a healing modality that I actually recently just learned about. My partner was wearing waist beads, and I was like, what does this do? And hers in particularly were to do some healing with her womb. And I just thought that it was beautiful that you could wear jewelry that is so beautiful and divine. And also it has this healing magic that that Rene has put onto them, right? So Rene, thank you so much for creating this project and for putting together this amazing business to not only give us fashion, but give us something that we can utilize to heal and bring love into our bodies. So check it out. The link will be in the show notes. Our wellness tip of the week is to take an opportunity to take a moment with yourself this week, a moment of complete you and you time. And if you have the bandwidth, do some reflection on these 3 questions. Ask yourself, who am I? What is my purpose? How can I love myself more? Again, those 3 questions are, who am I? What is my purpose? How can I love myself more? I invite you to sit within some reflection for today's wellness tip of the week. Just sit within some self-reflection, right? Have a moment. You don't got to meditate, right? Maybe meditation isn't for you, but just sit with yourself in a moment and ask yourself those questions. Again, I want to thank you for listening to Boy Meets Wellness. If you really like the show, sharing is caring. Share it with your friends, family, colleagues, and loved ones. We would love for more people to listen, tap in, and hear more about these incredible stories and journeys. So now for our interview with Dr. Jon Paul. Hello, world. Welcome to Boy Meets Wellness. Excited about today's interview with Jon. Please, Jon Paul, please introduce yourselves to our community. Name, pronouns that you prefer, or pronouns that you don't prefer, right? Because some of us are in that place in our lives. And tell us what brings you joy.
Wow. Well, first off, thanks for asking me to be here. It's been very much a kind of a long time coming. I'm so glad we actually get to sit down and chat because most of the time when we see each other, we're kind of in passing. My name is Jon, also known online as Dr. Jon Paul. My pronouns are they, them. And I like to tell people you can call me anything, but long as you put doctor in front of it. That's all that matters. And yeah, what is bringing me joy right now? I think for me, the biggest thing that has been bringing me joy is really kind of getting back to the one thing that I've over time kind of gotten away from, but have always loved. In high school, I used to be a runner. I did cross country running. And so now as the pandemic has hit, I've been going back to that. I've been running and I have my music and I just kind of allow myself to go as far as I feel like my body can go. And ultimately that's been the biggest thing that's been helping me stay centered and stay kind of focused, is getting back into my cross country running mindset.
Beautiful, beautiful. So what shoes are you wearing when you're running? Because I know we have some runners who listen to us. Are you more of a New Balance, a Nike? Like what do you prefer?
So I have my reasons for the shoes that I purchase. I'm going to always say that everything that I do always comes back to Beyoncé. Yes, I am one of those people. And so ultimately, the only running shoes that I rock are Adidas because ultimately Beyoncé has a deal with them. And then I also kind of the same thing. Beyoncé also has a deal with them too. I have a few pair of Peloton shoes that I run in as well. So
Nice. Do you have one of those fancy Pelotons?
I do. I do have a fancy Peloton bike.
Oh, nice. How do you like it? I've heard amazing things about it. I've seen so many commercials. I'm like obsessed with just watching people talk about it.
It's so interesting to me because I don't even know how Peloton became like the elite bike of, what it was. So the thing for me was the only reason why I'll say this, the reason why I got a Peloton bike was this. I had worked and I had gotten a deal and I told myself, I said, the deal that I had gotten, I said, I'm going to take some of that money because my husband had been on my head. He was like, you don't buy yourself anything. When you do, it's always usually just really small things that you need. He was like, what is the one thing that you really, really want? And so my friend Onyx had actually gotten one. And I was, we had been talking back and forth about it because she knew that I was interested in like buying like workout stuff. And she was like, I have a code. And if you use my code, you get this much off and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, cool. And so I used her code, got a really good deal on it. And actually the same month that I bought my Peloton was the month that they actually dropped the price on it. So I ended up getting a really good deal on it. And to say all of that, I love the Peloton community. Everyone's so supportive. The people who actually teach the classes, if you ping them on social media, they talk to you back. I mean, Tunde follows me on Instagram, who's one of my favorite instructors. Hannah is my number one. I consider myself a part of the push push crew, but for the most part, it's just everyone's so supportive, and it's kind of like a message in a I mean, it's not like you're just working out. You're really like, I've gotten so many good affirmations and messages from my workout sessions. And I think that's what initially brings me back every single day. So,
Wow, I love this review. I'm going to have to check this out even more in depth. Thank you so much for
you're
sharing.
welcome.
So let's talk a little bit about who you are, right? Like
Okay.
where did you grow up? Where do you live now? And how did you end up there?
How did I end up here? So, that is a good question. I actually grew up. So, I started out, most of my life I was raised between Compton and Paramount. And so, if you are a LA person, if you're an LA County person, you know where Paramount is. It's literally kind of like on the outskirts of like, it's almost when you get to like the Long Beach area. And so grew up between there. My parents separated. My mom was like, I don't want my kids growing up in Los Angeles. She was just very adamant on us not being LA people. And she moved to San Bernardino. And it was, I think, a big part of the reason why we moved to San Bernardino was my mom and my uncle Buddy, shout out to my uncle Robert. They were very, very, very close friends growing up. And they went to the same high school, ran in the same circles. My family there, they were raised Jehovah's Witnesses, and so they went to the same Kingdom Hall. So they were all very much kind of in the same clique. My mom ends up marrying my dad. When they separated, my uncle Buddy had moved to the Inland Empire. So my mom, because she was very close to my uncle Buddy, moved there. And yeah, it was just a very interesting growing up in the IE in the early 90s is very much different than what it is now. I think growing up in the early 90s was like San Bernardino, Moval, Colton, Rialto, like they were up and coming places. They were basically the IE was the place to be if you were in the early 90s, right? And then the economy tanked. And I think with the economy tanking, the Inland Empire kind of got the brunt of it, right? A lot of money was being poured into like LA County and OC County and the Inland Empire, which I would say San Bernardino County and Riverside County, they just kind of got left out of the pot. And so, with that being said, growing up in San Bernardino was just a very interesting experience, right? There's a lot of, especially in the area where I grew up, there was a lot of crime. I would say it was kind of almost very similar to the crime that happened in Compton when I would go visit my family, a lot of gang violence, a lot of policing, a lot of issues. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about social justice issues now, is because I grew up in a place that was heavily policed as a kid. And then, kind of going more into like where I am now, I currently live, I usually don't like to tell people where I live, but I live outside. I like to say I live outside of Los Angeles. I only live about maybe 20, 30 minutes away outside of Los Angeles. And with that being said, like, I think for me, the reason why I live there is one, because it's affordable, because if LA ain't cheap, sis. And that's the thing.
It ain't at all, Lord.
At all. It's like once you pass, literally once you get into like LA County and you start moving up, it gets more and more and more expensive to thrive. And so where I stay at now, I can still this is my justification for why I live where I live. I can still get to LA in the time that I need to get into LA. Obviously we're in quarantine and we're not really doing anything outside of working from home. But like if I need to be on a shoot, or if I need to go cover an event, or if I need to do something entertainment related, I can get there in in the time that I need without really it hurting my pocket. So that's the reason why I live where I live. And overall, I think a bigger part is too, is just I have an amazing, strong community where I live. I know a lot of great people. I've met a lot of great people over the years, and they've just become my chosen family. And so I've opted to just kind of stay where I am.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that history of, the IE. And I never really thought about it, but I remember being younger and some of my family moving out to Corona, and it was like a big deal. It was like, oh, like they got a nice house, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just a better area. And it was that shift, that economic shift where you seen like a lot of jobs were lost. And then my uncle who lived out that way ended up having to commute back to LA actually to work at the post office, which he was supposed to work out, in Corona. So yeah, it was a big shift. Look at you telling us some history and getting us grounded, which is why I love and appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the people who make your life incredible, right? Because this
Yeah.
is Boy Meets Wellness. Who are 3 people that make your life incredible if you had a gratitude list?
If I had a gratitude list. So I'm gonna start off. Obviously, I'm gonna say my mom, but my mom's gonna come second. I think I'm gonna talk about my partner very quickly. So funny enough, a lot of people always kind of giggle when I tell this story. Me and my partner have the same name, and I've always said to when I was growing up and I was kind of coming into my queerness and coming to terms with who I was. I don't know why in the back of my mind I said I am going to marry a Jonathan. Like, I just know that I'm going to meet another Jonathan and I'm going to fall in love with him. And that's exactly what happened. And so you can say that I spoke it into existence, that I manifested. However, you want to name it. I ultimately ended up marrying my partner. We have been married for 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So we've been married for 7 years, but we've been together since 2010. So 11 years. And
Congratulations. That's so
thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you so much. And I will say, like, he just gives me so much. There are things about him that I mean, the one thing I will say that he has taught me the most is patience. And I say patience not in the sense of like he's complicated. I think everyone is complicated in their own rights, but I think for me, living and loving someone, being happy in a relationship with someone, there's a certain level of patience that you just kind of have to learn about what it means to give yourself to others, even in moments when you don't really want to, and having to take, because again, I'm a very independent person. I'm a Leo by nature, so everything is usually about me. And not being in a relationship or being in a relationship with someone who's not a Leo really has taught me a lot about my own self in terms of patience. So number one at the top of my list would obviously be my husband. The second person would be my mom. Me and my mom have had a very interesting relationship. I'm still very close to my mom, have always been close to her. But I think when I say interesting, it was when I married my partner. I think my mom really had to come to terms with the fact that she had a queer son. And I don't think that she was ready for that. And so that kind of took a toll on our relationship. There are other things that, we don't have the time to really get into in terms of the relationship I have with my mom. But now, me being 35 and living the life that I live and being in such a public at times, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that my mom really raised me well. Like, I think about a lot of the stuff that my mom taught me, and I think about a lot of the conversations I even have with my mom now. We were just giggling the other day because she called me. We were talking about something, and I was like, "Child, being an adult is a scam." And we just both started busting up because I remember my mom saying so many things. Like when I was younger, I was always like, I want to be grown. I want to get older. I can't wait till I get older. My mom would be like, no, you don't. And now that I'm 35 and I'm paying off all this debt and I'm trying to keep these bills paid and make sure that that man don't come and hook up my car at the end of the day, take it away, child. I think having that real conversation with my mom about life being a scam in a lot of ways is fun. Like, I'm just grateful to have a mom who I can genuinely call for anything, have any conversation with her, and know that it's going to be a good, like, down home conversation. Last but not least, I think the other person that I want to big up, I have a lot of other people. So, other friends, Toy, I have a lot of other individuals that I talk to on a daily basis. But my other friend, her name is Rhea. I would say she's the other person I put on my gratitude list because me and Rhea, we can laugh about anything. Me and Rhea are so close that I can literally look at her and I can literally not say anything and we will both start busting up laughing because we just have the same sense of humor. We've been friends for over 20 years. I can text her anything and we literally are just we are, in a lot of ways, we are the same person, and our comedy and our humor is the same. And I just find her to be one of the most funny and most intelligent and the most beautiful people. And so I'm so grateful to have someone in my life who I know for a fact will always make me laugh, even in moments when I probably shouldn't be. So
Solid people in your life, right? We always talk about on the show, right? Like how when people see people that they admire, there is a team behind them. There's a family. There's a system holding them together. So I think it's so brilliant that you have that connection, and cheers and snaps to them for holding you
thank
down
you.
and for holding like beautiful space for you. So the last time we talked, I would say was probably at like a blackout a few years
Hmm.
ago. And I remember one of the things that really motivated me about you was you were working in DEI work. I was as well. And you had an issue with an employee. I'm not going to go into it in depth, but I really appreciated the integrity and the way that you were able to shift yourself away from that particular position, right?
Yeah.
And start to really go for your dream of stepping into media, right? And really claiming that and speaking about the process still on the platforms that people tried to shame you off of, right?
Hello? Yeah.
And it was just so powerful to see. So I would just love to hear about your pivot, right? Like I know you were doing, and you're still doing social justice work, but why did you decide to particularly pivot and do more work within the media industry?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing that I think, for folks, and the reason why, right? You would think something very public happened to me a few years ago. You can Google it. And you would think with that happening, that it would probably shy me away from wanting to be in the public eye, right? But I think for me, the biggest thing was recognizing how many times I felt like I didn't see myself, and knowing that there was someone else out in the world who felt like me, doing the same thing I'm doing, wanting to do the same thing I'm doing, and feeling like, why is it that I can't find anyone in this world who looks slash wants to do what I do? And so even in moments like now, right? Like I'm going through this phase right now where yes, I'm consulting, and yes, I'm still writing, and yes, I'm in talks with people about book deals, and there's all of these things that are happening. There's still this element of being like, why am I not bigger than what I am? And, or what I want to be. And I think for me that was the biggest thing, was just trying to kind of create or carve out the space to remind people that this life, this work, this experience is really truly a journey. And I wanted to make my journey public. I wanted people, in a lot of ways, I get people who will say, so there's two rhetorics that I think kind of follow me as Dr. Jon Paul. There's the people who love me and say they are a truth teller, they're speaking truth to justice, they're really talking about all of the terrible things that are happening in the world. I really want to follow them because I want to figure out, how do I posit my voice and posit my life and my mind and my space in the same ways that Dr. Jon Paul is doing it. Okay, fantastic. Then there's the other folks on the other side of the coin, or the other side of the rope, that are saying Dr. Jon Paul is negative. Dr. Jon Paul is always talking about the bad. Dr. Jon Paul is always talking about, things that are happening to them. Like, why are they never happy? Why are they never satisfied? And I think that, in the words of James Baldwin, both of those experiences can exist at the same time. Like, I think the biggest problem, and that's the reason why I am so vocal and so open and honest about my experiences, I think so much of social media is manufactured. So much of what we see in this world is manufactured. Okay, you go to school, you get the job, you find the husband or wife, or or whatever the case may be, and your life is fantastic. You don't have to struggle. You don't have any problems. You go to work every day and you love your job. And I was in a place after everything happened to me in 2017, where I was going, screw that. I'm going to speak the truth. I'm going to speak truth to power about what's affecting people that look, live, and love like me. And so I think that was the biggest thing. That was the very kind of gist of me making the pivot to media. Was I think that there just needs to be this element of reality around the hustle and the struggle that we as Black queer people deal with. And I don't feel like, both online or off, we're having real, thorough conversations that spark or push or engage people to act. And that's literally what my platform is. Yes, we can talk about it on Clubhouse for hours. Okay, fantastic. Where I'm at is, what are y'all niggas gonna do? Sorry, you may have to.
No, that is totally allowed here. Please continue.
Like, my biggest thing becomes like, what are y'all niggas gonna do when we get off of Clubhouse? What are y'all gonna do when you get off or you log off of Twitter? Like, let's stop talking. We can spend, the morning, if you say, okay, we're gonna take 9 to 12 to talk about the issues, and then 12 to 3, in the afternoon, we're gonna spend time talking about how we activate and how we move. No, I'm not out on the front lines, but I will tell you this. I'm connected to almost every single large organization between here and Los Angeles around all the stuff that people are doing. I know who's doing what. I know how they're doing it. I know how they're strategizing. I know who I can get you over to if you do want to do something. And so that's the work that I'm doing. And I think that that's what I want to use my platform for. We can talk for days, but if you are not about that action, save the conversation, because you're wasting your breath. And that's literally what Dr. Jon Paul stands for. Speak truth, yes, we can. I want us to keep speaking truth, but I also want us to be able to find the space within ourselves to figure out what type of work we need to do, whether it's for ourselves or for others. And that's ultimately why I decided in 2017 to just be like, screw it, I'm just going to be public. And if people love me, fantastic. And if they don't, then, like, one of my sayings is, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but drink some water, you'll be all right.
I know that's right. I know that's right. Yeah. I think it's so important that people realize that, the work that we're doing is not new, right? And it is time to move into action. I've been having so many conversations with young people who want to get into DEI work, right? They come to me, I want to get in, I want to learn. And I'm like, well, what exactly do you want to change, right? That's always my first question. And a lot of times they've, copy and paste some workshop that they've gotten from another organization or another workshop, and they just want to continue to repeat the same rhetoric that many of us have been repeating the last decade. So what tips would you give for young people who are interested, right, in getting into particularly diversity, equity, and inclusion work in organizations, or being asked to come into these spaces, right? Because every time we have a murder, I'm gonna be honest with you, every time we have a murder
Call it what it is,
of a
fam.
black
Call it
person,
what it is. Yes,
of a
it's a
black person,
murder.
we get all of these positions popping up at every organization, and ultimately it's usually black folks who are there to clean up the mess for these places. So, what advice would you give folks?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that I have learned, and I even would say this is something that I had to learn in the last couple of months, is don't feel guilty for being paid well for doing what you do and for the knowledge that you hold. I tell people all the time, yes, I have 3 degrees. Yes, I am a doctor. Okay, fantastic. I went to school and I got the knowledge, but half of the real true knowledge that I have is knowledge that no one's going to be able to ever get, right? We as marginalized people, we have a certain lived experience that I think a lot of white folks are trying to capitalize and trying to colonialize and can never do it. And I think that's the thing. So when you tell people, "Oh, I want to get paid for this," or "I want to make sure I'm paid well for my expertise," know that that is something that's valuable. That is something that, and I'm not saying that it should be commodified, but what I am saying is, do not let people pay you less than what you are worth for the experience that you know that they will never be able to touch or understand. The other thing that I think is really important too, I think a lot of us are saying a lot of the same things, but really, something that Tunde says, so shout out to Peloton again. Tunde always says season to taste. And I think that that's the thing that I've had to learn within my own journey, is that I had to season to taste what my work looked like, right? So, Ashley Marie Preston, shout out to her, one of my really good friends. I would say almost at this point, Ashley Marie Preston is one of my best friends. I talk to her almost daily. Ashley is going to show up and is going to show out. Okay. Same thing with Blossom. Same thing for a lot of the other girls that I know. My friend Matthew, my friend Angie. These are all people that are out on the front lines that will literally, they're ready to shake your shit. That's just how they get down as activists. Okay. I'm not that girl. I'm okay with confrontation, but it is not my thing. So being out on the front line is not something that I've never been able to find comfort in that. I've gone to marches, I've marched with people, I've strategized with marches, and I've always left marches going, I just don't know if this is for me. That is okay. I think that's the other thing is, you have to figure out, when I say season to taste, you have to figure out what your activism or what your DEI work or your social justice work is going to look like for you. And if other people, say, "Oh, I don't like what you do," or "I don't think what you do adds anything to this conversation," then that's fantastic. Like my mama would also say, eat the meat and spit out the bone. If you don't like what I do, then that means it's not for you, right? So I think that that's the other thing, is that you don't need to try to replicate what D-Ray is doing in that blue vest. You don't need to try to replicate what, Ashley's doing, or what even Angelica Ross is doing. I think Angelica Ross is doing a fantastic job of diversifying tech, right? And outside of all of the stuff that she's doing in her acting role. These are all individuals that like I said, they're my friends, but I have to remind myself daily that their journey is their journey. How they do their work is how they do their work, and how you do your work needs to be the way that you do it for you, so you can sleep well at night. Me, I put on my CPAP machine and I go straight to sleep every single night. I'm very content with the way that I do my work. The other thing that I would say, the last thing that I would add, and I hope I'm not giving a sermon right now, but I think the other thing,
Preach. We need it. Preach.
I think the other thing that I think people really need to do, and this is something that I've had to work on with my therapist, is I had to really genuinely remind myself that not everything needs to be a battle. And I think sometimes we come into DEI work ready to literally chop white folks, specifically white folks' neck off. Some of them need it. Yes, there are a lot of white people out there who need to be judo chopped right at the, like literally right in the middle of their neck because of all of the stuff that they say and they do. However, I want to make sure, and this is a part of the care part for me, right? This idea of you walking around with so much anger and angst in your body. A lot of people see me on social, see me in real life, and they go, you just have this beautiful natural light that kind of follows you. And I tell people, yes, because I've let go of a lot of the anger that I had in life. You know, I was angry for being raised poor. I was angry for being Black. I was angry for being queer. I was angry for being poor, Black, and queer. I was angry for being fat. Like there were all of these things that followed me throughout college that really made me angry. And when I was able to find a good therapist, shout out to my therapist, who was a queer Black woman that I love, finding her and being able to understand what that anger was me kind of responding to the systemic oppression that was kind of put onto me. I think that really helped me understand what it means to let go of that and how I don't let that anger literally keep me away from a bag. Now, let me tell you this. There are things that I navigate. And like I said, this work is a both and work. And shout out to Dr. Jamie Washington for that, because he coined the concept of, you know, the both and complex, right? So some of it is both and. Am I going to go on Twitter and talk shit? Yes. Okay. That's just me. That's how I do. If a brand or a company says, we don't like your voice, we don't like your social media presence, well, fantastic. That means I am not the girl for you. Will I run up in somebody's meeting and go off on somebody for saying something racist? No, that's not how I roll. I'm one of those people that again, emotional intelligence is something that I thrive off of. I want to know the concept. So am I going to speak truth to power on social? Am I going to always speak truth to power in the work that I do? Yes. But I also know how to get my message across. And I think that's the thing we have to understand in doing this work is, what is your voice? And a lot of folks are following so many other people's voices in doing this work that they don't know who they are. And that's the reason why they can't find success. So when people look at Dr. Jon Paul and they go, how? And I go, baby, I'm just being myself. And if I'm not what you enjoy, then again, I'm not for you. And that's okay. I may not be for your company. Yeah, I may have kind of talked myself out of a bag, but do I want to go to bed at night knowing that I sold myself out for a couple of $1,000s to be what the world wants me to be? I did that when I was in high school, trying to pretend not to be queer. I'm not doing it no more. So I think that that's the thing, is just, you know, I really want folks who are in this work to know that it really comes down to figuring out what your voice is and finding you. I'll say this and then I'll shut up. Find a team of people who know and understand that voice. Because I'll tell you this too. I have a manager. I have a couple of folks who are helping me get this calendar together, child. I have a couple of other people who are helping, like, for instance, the woman who is interested right now, I'm in talks with to take my book. They all also know and understand my voice. And I tell people, if you don't understand Dr. Jon Paul, you don't understand my brand, you don't understand who I am and where I'm wanting to go, then we don't need to work together. But I think that's the biggest thing, is please don't connect or work with people or try to push yourself into spaces where you're not truly allowed to celebrate all of the elements of who you are, who you want to be. That's not going to help your work go anywhere.
Thank you for that sermon. We needed it. I hope y'all taking notes. I hope that the folks that are listening have taken notes and are knowing that they need to value themselves in this work, right? And authenticity is the key. I love that you brought that in as a thread at the end, right? That your power of your brand, of the work that you're doing to change the world, right, is wrapped up in you being you and you doing the work to heal yourself in order to even be more and more authentic every time you step into the building and step into the space. So I was on your website recently, and I see that the calendar is pretty much like kind of almost booked up. Like you are speaking at different places every week. Can you tell the audience a little bit about like, what does your consultant work look like? What are you offering when you're going out and doing speaking engagements?
Yeah, and so that's really, I mean, like I said, I think that's the really cool part. Part of right now, I want to shout out, I'm working with someone in Long Beach right now through their consulting firm, and we have a project right now with a creative agency. And, again, NDAs, I can't tell you too much, but other than what I can tell you is, it's really cool to know that there is an element of me being able to kind of go into these organizations and help really, like I said, help other friends of mine or other people, push their dreams and get them to where they want to go in terms of consulting. But when, I'm called into a space like, so my number one thing that I've been focusing on, so I will tell you kind of the way that Dr. Jon Paul works is this. I have a Google Doc, and what I do in my Google Doc is I literally just kind of go Monday through, Saturday/Sunday. And then I just, and I put dates next to it. And these are all of the things that I plan on working on or what I'm doing. And one of the biggest things that I'm actually doing right now is I'm trying to get a better understanding or get a better feel for what it means to be a consultant in entertainment who really specializes in working with diverse individuals, specifically LGBTQ people. I feel like we have shows like Pose, and we have a couple of other shows. I mean, T.S. Madison has a show, and that is all great and fantastic. But for me, it becomes, how are you treating people in front of the camera, and how are you treating people behind the camera? That's a big part of the work that I'm doing. So I have some conversations getting ready to come up with a couple of networks around doing some work with that. Shout out to Fox, because they were one of the organizations that reached out to me and said that they are interested in this work. So my work can range from anything. It can be as low as education. It can be, and I don't say low in the sense of it being low up, but I'm saying in terms of like stuff that's not in front of the camera. So it can be anything from, a company saying, hey, I'm this small startup and I have a question about how do I get more LGBTQ people to want to engage with my product. All right, I got you, sis. If a company, a school comes to me and says, hey, our LGBTQ students, specifically don't feel included, what can we do to help them feel, better, seen or helped or loved? Okay, fantastic. Let's have a conversation about what a panel could look like, or what, a talk could look like, or even what revisiting my dissertation could look like for you, right? Then there's, the big stuff, right? Fox comes knocking at your door and says, hey, we're thinking about doing all of this stuff between 2021 and 2025. We would love some guidance on it. And like it says in my bio, I've worked with Apple, Disney, Instagram. Apple came to me because they wanted to know what it would be like to work with fat people. Instagram came to me and said, how do we make sure that queer people feel included in our, branding and all of the stuff that we're doing? And same thing with Disney. Right before Soul came out, they asked me, hey, we have a whole bunch of questions about how do we make sure that Black people feel seen and valued in marketing this movie. So there are all these different things that I get asked to do. But I think the biggest thing for me is, before I go to any of these spaces and before I even allow myself to consult or give my opinion on anything, my number one thing becomes, I do not want to do this work if it means that I'm coddling you or making you feel better about something that that you have an issue with, right? If we need to name that the issue in this room is racism, we're going to name it. If we need to name the issue in the room is that you're transphobic or something, or a project or something you're doing is transphobic, we need to name it. I'm not going to be the one to come in here and kind of like pat you on the head and say, thank you for trying. Good job. No, we're going to talk about how we do the work better. But I think the number one thing for me in terms of like, what does my day-to-day and what does my like life/world look like? It's just allowing myself to be open to whatever the universe is bringing me, and really having a good relationship with the universe to know that whatever's being put on my plate is obviously being put there for a reason. And if it doesn't, if I eat it, like, because I'll tell you right now, I'm not a fan of squash or zucchini, honey. But if I look at the plate and I see a squash or zucchini, okay, thank you, universe. I appreciate you trying to make sure I can eat, but that ain't for me, But then there are moments like I love me. So I'm gonna say this, you can judge accordingly, but I love donuts. I love fried chicken. I love potato salad. So if it ends up being fried chicken and potato salad on the plate, I'm gonna eat. And I tell people too, I think the other big part of this consulting work is making sure that your friends eat too. Like I always tell people at the end of the day, if my plate is full and I have enough on my plate, I'm going to make sure that my friends eat. So, shout out to, and I'm just shouting out to different people because I want to make sure that they get their light too. My friend Jiminica, who does a whole bunch of, sex advocate work. She's fantastic. Absolutely amazing. Me and her, there have been opportunities that have come down my pipeline. And I've said, nah, go ahead and talk to Jiminy because she got that. My friend Travell Anderson, who used to work with the LA Times and is now currently over at Extra, they ultimately, people reach out to me and say, hey, I have a question about X, Y, and Z. Do you That's Travell. That ain't me. Or I have a political question that I have for LGBTQ. Go talk to my friend Jared Hill. Like, I have no problem with recognizing and saying that ain't for me. That's not a bag or a check that I want for myself. My friends can help you. I think that's the other thing in this consulting / DEI work that I think has also helped me a lot is knowing that I'm not selfish. And I genuinely believe that if I do well, if Evolve does well, if anybody in my immediate circle is doing okay, then that means I'm doing okay too. Because at the end of the day, we all got to have each other's back in this work. That's just really what it comes down to.
Yep, you got to find your people. I remember one of my good friends, Van Bailey, when I first got into work, was like, no matter what organization, what city you're in, find your people. That was like the number one thing that he told me, right? And it's so important to pass the bag, y'all. Like, we talk about this a lot on the show when we talk about abundance. When you pass that bag, it comes right back to you. And oftentimes tenfold. And the energy of giving is really what you want to be in if you want to cultivate abundance, right? You can't be in stingy energy and then you're trying to call in millions. You will be clogged up and it will not come to you. So thank you for preaching. Thank you for bringing that too. Let's shift gears a little bit because we are going to have to let you go soon. I want to know a little bit about why you love Beyoncé.
Oh,
like, what's your top 3 reasons why you love Queen B?
You should have just made this whole episode about her, child. Why do I love Beyonce? So I'll make this quick because I do, like I said, I want to make sure that I admonish and adhere to the time limits because I could be here literally all day. So I'm just going to share a quick story, and this will just kind of hopefully give you an onus as to why I think this woman is amazing. So when I met my husband did not like Beyonce. He did not like her. He was like, I think she's fake. I think she's phony. I think that she puts on, her interviews feel so manufactured. Her music sounds manufactured. I have always been a Beyonce fan. I want to just make this very clear that even in Destiny's Child days, like I remember 1996, I was getting ready for school. No came on the on my TV. I was getting ready for school, watching videos. No came on, and I stopped and I said, "Who is this woman? Why is she singing this way? And why is she awesome?" Like, it was just something about Beyonce that always stuck out to me. And so, down to, Destiny's Child days with, her, Michelle, and Kelly. We don't name the other girls because they don't matter. No shade, but it's true. I've always had a thing for just Beyonce being so confident. And so when Crazy in Love dropped, I said, okay, this girl, she's coming out the gate hot. Like she knew what she was doing. I've just always seen her work ethic, and I think that's the biggest thing. But I'll go back to the story. So long story short, my husband, we went to Miss Carter tour. He wasn't that amused. I don't think that I think he got it, but he didn't get it, right? Had a good time. But he still was just kind of like, it's whatever. I was like, okay, fine, girl. We go to the Formation tour, and I knew the set because, again, I'm a Beyonce. I'm in the Hive. I knew the set. Like, I knew what song came after what. I just had never seen it because I was intentionally ignoring all of the stuff I was seeing online. Because I said, when I see the show, I really want to be there. So she goes from Sorry into Run the World. And I don't know if did you get a chance to go to the Formation tour?
I did. It was amazing.
Okay, fantastic. So we go from Sorry into the Call Becky with the good hair. And then she literally, the box turns around and it goes red. And that's when she goes into Run the World. And there was just something about the energy in that in particular performance where I'm watching. Like, I stopped because I was getting my life during the song. And then I stopped and I looked at my husband, and you could just see it in his face that he became a believer in the moment. And so as soon as she finished performing Run the World, he turned to me. He was like, "That's a bad bitch." And I said, exactly. I've been trying to tell you for the last 10 years. It's just her. I think, like I said, it all comes back to her work ethic. Like, even on my lowest day, I can think of something Beyonce has said or done that inspires me enough to get up the next day to say, keep going, girl. You're going to be bigger than what you want to be or expect to be. and you're going to hit a lot of roadblocks. Like I always think about her tour. Oh my God, you have me on a roll now. I think about her tour when her first album came out. She said, I'm sitting in the Sony exec office and, I play them Crazy in Love. I play them, pretty much the whole album. And the execs look at me and say, none of these are hits. And she said, they tell me that none of these songs are going to be hits. And on top of, the album goes platinum and there's, all 4 of her songs are now certified diamond, right? So it's just stuff like that reminds me, like, if you even for you to tell Beyonce that she's not it, she's, in my opinion, she's like the Michael Jackson of our generation.
I agree.
I look and I go, like, if she can be that, so can I. And I think that's the reason why I live for her, is that it's not just about her being a great musician. It's her work ethic. Her work ethic is incomparable. And yes, I recognize she has a huge team. I recognize she has money. I recognize that Jay-Z has a big, history and foundation. He runs a lot of the stuff that we don't see or we don't know. And that's what keeps her in production and going. There are a lot of wills to it, but at the end of the day, nothing will ever get away from how hard that woman works. And I think that that's the thing that makes me love her more every single day, is that even when we're asleep, she's still thinking about that next thing that's going to snatch our wig. Like, she never rests. And it's not like, oh, Black women, we need to, it's not like that. What I'm talking about is this idea that she allows herself to just continue to keep evolving, no pun intended. And I think that that's the thing I love. I love everything about her, just down to her sense of humor, down to her, her albums, her music, her thoughts. Like, she's just amazing. There are no words.
Shouts out to Lady B, Queen B, Beyonce. Shouts out to you for just being amazing and for giving us a reason to love Blackness, right? Like, I think that's what she has done the last couple of years, really allowed us to lean in it with her as she celebrated and loved on Blackness even more. So this has been so amazing to have you come to the show. I got to bring you back because I got more things to ask you later on after some of these NDAs are over and we get you, in there and we can hear a little bit more about that. But before you go, can you let folks know, like, how can they support your work? How should they engage with it? What are you working on right now?
Yeah. So like I said, I think the biggest thing that I've been telling people to do is to keep their eyes peeled, because I will be on television sometime soon. Can't say much more about it. But other than that, make sure that you are watching the streaming services, because something will be dropping sometime this year. The other thing that I think is I've been telling people in terms of supporting me is to make sure that you're supporting other individuals who look and live like me. Make sure that if you are in a place to where you can do anything about hiring or bringing people in as consultants and things of that nature, while I would always love to be brought in and to help your organization and to help people, the other thing I like to tell people too is to make sure that specifically trans Black women are getting opportunities to be able to eat and live and things of that nature. And then outside of that, just following me on social media. You can find me everywhere you stalk your exes. At DoctorJonPaul is where you can find me on all social media handles, www.drjonpaul.com. And ultimately, just, if you just, I say this, if you're just walking around with your friends, just tap them on the shoulder. Do you know Dr. Jon Paul? No? Oh, maybe you should. That's how you can support me, is tell your friends, tell your aunties, your mama, the woman who is braiding your hair, who probably ain't got the license she's supposed to do it. Tell them about me and let the world know that she's coming. That's literally all you got to do.
Thank you so much for being here. And you know what? That's a wrap. That's a wrap for that.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Jon Paul, and I was born obviously incredible.
Thanks for listening to Boy Meets Wellness. Stay connected on and off the show by following us online at Boy Meets Wellness. That's boy with an I. Until next time, go be incredible.